Brad Pitt camp explodes at Angelina Jolie for most effective parental alienation ever, as twins drop his surname. What happens when one of Hollywood's most famous family stories takes yet another dramatic turn? For years, the relationship between Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, and their 6 children has remained one of the most closely watched celebrity family situations in the world. Now, fresh reports suggest that another major chapter has unfolded. Recent reports claim that Knox, one of the former couple's twins, used only the Jolie surname on his high school diploma. This follows earlier reports involving Shiloh, Zahara, Maddox, and Vivienne distancing themselves from the Pitt surname in various ways. At the same time, sources close to Brad Pitt have reportedly described the situation in emotional terms, claiming the actor feels deeply hurt by what has happened within his family. Some reports have even quoted sources alleging what they describe as a long-term alienation campaign, though such claims remain allegations and have not been independently proven. So what exactly is happening? How did Hollywood's most famous family reach this point? And what does this latest development reveal about one of the entertainment industry's longest-running family conflicts? Let's take a closer look. To understand why these developments are making headlines around the world, we need to go back to the beginning. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie were once considered Hollywood royalty. Their relationship became one of the most famous celebrity romances of the 2000s. Together, they built a large family consisting of 6 children. Maddox, Pax, Zahara, Shiloh, Knox, Vivienne. For many years, the Jolie-Pitt family represented an image of global celebrity blended with humanitarian work and international family life. Wherever they went, photographers followed. Every red carpet appearance generated worldwide attention. The family became a cultural phenomenon. Few celebrity families attracted more public fascination. Yet behind the scenes, serious tensions were reportedly developing. And eventually those tensions would explode into one of Hollywood's most public and prolonged family disputes. The story changed dramatically in 2016. That was the year Angelina Jolie filed for divorce from Brad Pitt. The separation immediately became one of the biggest entertainment stories in the world. What followed was years of legal battles, custody disputes, media reports, and public speculation. Various allegations were made during the divorce process. Jolie accused Pitt of abusive behavior during a private plane incident. Pitt denied wrongdoing. Authorities ultimately did not bring criminal charges against him. Nevertheless, the event became a defining moment in the family's history. According to many reports, it significantly affected relationships within the family. Over time, observers began noticing that several of the children appeared increasingly distant from their father years past. The legal battles continued. But public attention gradually shifted away from court filings and toward the children's actions. Fans began noticing subtle but significant changes. Some of the children appeared publicly without emphasizing the Pitt surname. Others reportedly stopped using it in certain settings. At first, these developments seemed isolated, but eventually a pattern emerged. And that pattern would become impossible to ignore. One of the biggest moments came when Shiloh reportedly pursued a legal name change after reaching adulthood. According to widely reported accounts, she successfully removed Pitt from her legal surname. The news attracted enormous attention. For many observers, it represented more than a simple paperwork change. It appeared to symbolize a shift in family relationships. Sources close to Pitt reportedly described him as saddened by the decision. The story quickly became international news. Yet it would not be the last time the surname issue made headlines. More recently, reports indicated that Zahara also moved to formally remove Pitt from her name. Observers noted that she had already been publicly using the Jolie surname in various settings before filing legal paperwork. This development intensified discussion about the relationship between Pitt and his children. It also fueled renewed debate across social media. Some people blamed Jolie. Others argue the children's choices should be respected as independent decisions. The public conversation became increasingly polarized. Then came Maddox. Reports emerged that the eldest child had filed documents to legally drop Pitt from his surname as well. Maddox had already appeared professionally under the name Maddox Jolie in connection with Angelina Jolie's film projects. His reported filing added another chapter to the ongoing story. By this point, many media outlets were describing a growing trend among the siblings. The question increasingly became, would the younger children follow the same path? That question gained new attention following reports involving Knox. According to recent coverage, Knox reportedly used the Jolie surname on his high school diploma. The report generated major headlines because Knox had historically remained less visible in the public dispute than some of his siblings. For many observers, the development suggested that the distancing from the Pitt surname might extend across all 6 children. However, it's important to note that media reports on family matters often rely on sources and limited public information. The family itself has not publicly detailed every aspect of these decisions. Perhaps the most controversial aspect of the recent coverage involves reactions attributed to sources close to Brad Pitt. Several reports claim individuals close to Pitt believe he has been alienated from his children over many years. These sources reportedly argue that the growing number of surname changes reflects a broader family estrangement. At the same time, other observers point out that the children are now making their own choices as young adults. This distinction is important, because without direct statement from all parties involved, outside observers can only speculate about motivations. The public response has been intense. Supporters of Pitt argue that the repeated surname changes are heartbreaking. Others argue that the children have every right to choose their identities. Social media discussions have often reflected broader debates about divorce, family conflict, loyalty, and personal autonomy. The result is a story that goes far beyond celebrity gossip. Many people see elements of their own family experiences reflected in this highly public situation. The biggest question remains unanswered. Can reconciliation happen? Reports continue to suggest that Pitt hopes to rebuild relationships with his children. Whether that becomes possible remains unknown. Family relationships are complicated, and when those relationships unfold under the spotlight of global media attention, the challenges become even greater. For now, the surname story has become one of the clearest public indicators of how much the family dynamic has changed since 2016. At first glance, changing a surname might seem like a simple administrative decision. People change names all the time. Some do it after marriage. Others do it for professional reasons. Some simply feel more connected to one side of their family than the other. But when the family involved happens to be Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, every detail becomes a global headline. That's why the surname story has captured so much attention. To many observers, the issue isn't really about paperwork. It's about symbolism. A surname often represents identity, family history, and emotional connection. When multiple members of the same family begin distancing themselves from a shared surname, people naturally start asking questions. What does it mean? Why is it happening? And what does it say about the current state of family relationships? These questions have fueled endless discussions across entertainment media. However, it's important to remember that only the family members themselves truly know the reasons behind their decisions. Everything else remains interpretation. And interpretation can vary dramatically depending on who is telling the story. One reason this story continues to generate so much interest is that there are essentially 2 competing narratives. The first narrative comes from sources sympathetic to Brad Pitt. According to these reports, Pitt has spent years feeling increasingly separated from his children. Supporters of this perspective often point to the surname changes as evidence of a growing emotional distance. They argue that these developments reflect years of strained family relationships. The second narrative comes from those who support Angelina Jolie or emphasize the independence of the children. People in this camp argue that the children are old enough to make their own decisions. They suggest that the choices being made today are personal choices rather than the result of outside influence. This perspective emphasizes agency. In other words, the children themselves decide how they wish to identify. The truth may be far more complicated than either side suggests. Family dynamics rarely fit neatly into a single narrative, especially when the family has spent nearly a decade navigating legal disputes, media attention, and public scrutiny. Imagine growing up with cameras following you everywhere. Imagine having millions of strangers discussing your family online. Imagine seeing headlines about your parents every week. That has been reality for the Jolie Pitt children. Unlike most teenagers and young adults, they have spent their entire lives under extraordinary public attention. Every appearance is photographed. Every public action is analyzed. Every family development becomes breaking news. For many celebrity children, this level of scrutiny can be overwhelming, and it often creates pressures that ordinary families never experience. The Jolie Pitt children have had to navigate not only normal challenges of growing up, but also the unique challenge of doing so in front of the entire world. That context is important. because decisions that might seem simple in private families often become major public statements when celebrity families are involved. Another factor that cannot be ignored is the extraordinary length of the legal conflict. Most celebrity divorces eventually fade from public attention. This one did not. Years after the initial separation, legal disputes continued making headlines. Court filings, custody discussions, business disagreements, and media reports repeatedly brought the family back into public conversation. Over time, lengthy conflict can affect everyone involved: parents, children, extended family members, friends. Even when legal matters are eventually resolved, emotional effects can remain. Experts often note that family conflicts lasting many years can create lasting divisions. Again, every family is different, but the length of this public dispute has made it one of the most unusual celebrity family stories in modern Hollywood history. Another reason the story attracts so much attention is Brad Pitt's status as one of Hollywood's biggest stars. For decades, Pitt was known primarily for blockbuster films, award-winning performances, and global fame. His image was carefully associated with success, charisma, and star power. But stories involving family relationships present a very different side of celebrity life. They remind audiences that famous people face personal challenges too. No amount of awards, money, or fame can automatically solve family conflicts. In some ways, the contrast makes a story even more compelling. Here is one of the world's most recognizable actors. Yet despite extraordinary professional success, reports suggest he continues to face profound personal struggles involving family relationships. That contrast has become a central theme in media coverage. Angelina Jolie's public comments over the years have often focused on protecting her children and prioritizing their well-being. While she has generally avoided discussing every detail publicly, her supporters argue that many of her decisions have been motivated by concern for her family. Jolie herself has repeatedly emphasized the importance of healing and moving forward. At the same time, she has also spoken about difficult experiences connected to the breakup and its aftermath. Because both sides have largely communicated through legal filings, interviews, and representatives, public understanding remains incomplete, and that uncertainty has allowed